Wasn't, if you were here, it was such a great talk with Reverend Donald last week. I'm still having insights and epiphanies. If you didn't catch it, watch it online. It was fabulous. Very simplistically fabulous. And it just inspired me to kind of continue on that path of, just kind of going back to the basics, because the reality is we are free. And the only thing that's keeping us from realizing that is our little minds that get very busy spinning little stories. And so it's our responsibility to break that. And to help us lighten the mood, did you hear about the pastor who died and went to heaven? No. He stood in line at the pearly gates, waiting and waiting and waiting for St. Peter to individually just come and welcome him. He starts chatting it up with the person in front of him, who happened to be a New York City taxi driver. And after a long while, lots of people moving up through the gates with St. Peter, the taxi driver arrives at the line, and he gets a beautiful staff, some wings, a golden robe, and a SUV Lexus. Finally, after waiting a long time, the pastor reaches the line. And St. Peter says, "Welcome to heaven. Here's your burlap robe, your cotton wings, your wooden staff, and your brand new VW." The pastor says, "Wait a minute. I serve the Lord. I don't get as good as the taxi driver." And St. Peter says, "Well, you don't understand. Up here, we judge people by their results." He says, "Results? What are you talking about?" St. Peter replies, "While you preached, people slept. While he drove, people prayed." I'm just saying. Please don't sleep here today. I want golden wings. Anyway, so great talk. And today we're going to talk about living bold, living a bold life, and the concepts of science of mind that help us achieve that. And I'm actually going to walk over here so you can see me gracefully walk across the stage, because I have a book that I want to share with you. So I'm going to stand here and talk about this with y'all. So today we're just talking about three basic concepts. I was reading the Science of Mind textbook under the thing itself. Very simple. If you read the Science of Mind textbook, it is a really simplistic entry into the larger work of Ernest Holmes. And when I was reading it, I thought, gosh, when I read this many, many years ago, it was all Greek to me. And as you deepen your inner work and things start to fall away, you get to reread these things and have a deeper understanding of what Ernest Holmes really meant. And you take it away in a sense of what it actually means to you, because words that are liberating always take on a meaning to the person who is reading them, because Spirit knows your life. It knows what you need. It knows what path you are on, because it is you. So what happens is our mind spins these little stories. And so as they spin the stories, and we start to live that subjective life that Reverend Donald was talking about from our cultural conditioning, right? We become who we were raised to be. And it is, when he was talking, I saw this rock, and I saw this water kind of flowing and hitting this rock and hitting this rock. And every time we are exposed to a beautiful teaching or truth or reality, freedom, it wears away at this rock until, in my mind, I saw this hole, right? So like if you ever walked on the beach and you find these really beautiful, intricate rocks, and some of them you pick up and there's like a hole in them where the water has worn through. This is what I saw when he was speaking, in that it allows that light to come through. So every time you're here, every time you study, every time you do the inner work, you are wearing away at that cultural conditioning in which you, me, we all, until we're fully liberated, react from, and actually we identify it as ourselves, and we believe that about ourselves, right? We believe that the things that were said to us, maybe even done, we believe that all of these things are true, and then it goes into our unconscious bias, and we use our conscious bias to think, but the unconscious is always informing the conscious. So I often am fascinated when I am reacting to someone or something, and I'm like, oh, I wish they would just. And now I've started to catch myself with, I wish they would, and then I come back in meaning I come back to center, and I have to literally say to myself, there are no others. The tricky thing about that is my ears hear you, my eyes see you, my mind interprets you, and so it takes a couple times of going out, why are you, to back in, who am I? Right? Why are you circulates back into who am I? And it brings up these feelings, sensations, how you feel your trigger is personal to you, right? How we move and have our being is personal to what we were taught and how we were groomed to be. And what we do here with the inner work is we start to be that water that erodes the stories away. We are the water, the truth actually is always the water that feeds the soul, that relieves the tension of the false narrative so that you can see reality beyond the thinking mind. Now we use our thinking to navigate this world, right? We're here, we're moving, we're breathing, we have to drive, we have to go to work, we have to interact. So we use our thinking, and since we use it, and since we have the ability to use it, we can notice that we're using it. If we notice that we're using it, then we know we're in choice. Right? We know that we can choose. It is the reactions that happen so quickly that slip out of your mouth before you even know it, and then you might feel a sensation. Maybe the sensation is fear. Oh, I might get in trouble for saying that. Maybe it's shame. I shouldn't have said that. Judgment. Maybe it's blame. I wouldn't have said that if they didn't do that. And these are the things that we're interested in looking at because they hold the story to your freedom. They hold the truths to your freedom. And so we teach here how to take a look at those things because it is very simple to say you have a subjective mind, your cultural conditioning. It's easy to say you should do the inner work. My thought is, well, what is the inner work? I mean, when someone tells me to go back home or to go in, my mind perceives it as closing my eyes, calming down, finding my center, and feeling my body, which is part of the work. But going deeper than that is to allow that sensation to sit, to feel the discomfort, and then to ask some questions. And Ernest Holmes really very, very much what he wanted us to know is that the universe does not play favorites. So if I can look and use the law, meaning I can think, I can direct my thought, I can give it attention, if I have that ability, so do you. So there are no victims in the universe, although our mind, again, the story, depending on how we were raised, can really make us feel like we're victims. I know for myself, for a very long time, I didn't walk around going, oh, I have a victim mentality, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. No, it's how I learned to move and be. And I still, because cultural condition is very, very deep in those roots and that unconscious mind that is always forming, like I said, it's a natural reaction to the world. So often we don't realize that we're still moving from that space until we turn around and take a look at the feeling, right? So the mind informs, the body feels, and the feeling is much more prevalent than the thought, right? Because the feeling is so strong. I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling fear, it's a big one for me. It's almost like my body vibrates and I want to run away. I want to stop it. I want to push it down. I want to do whatever I can to make it go away so I don't have to look at it. I don't have to taste it. I don't have to feel it. And then I could go back to being Tracey and I don't have to play with that. But that's the problem, is I go back to being Tracey. Tracey doesn't exist. Tracey is a name that my parents gave me, and then culturally conditioned through life and circumstances, school, teachers, places. It's the natural process of life. But if I just want to keep going back to being Tracey and avoiding all the painful things, then how can I ever actualize the truth of who I am? Nothing needs to be healed within you. There's nothing that needs to be healed within you, because the idea of the trauma and the story that is created from it is false. Now that's going to ring hard for some people. I'm not saying that the trauma or what was done didn't happen. I'm saying the story that we make up about it and the feeling that follows it is what is informing you to live your life. And if we don't stop, take a breath, ask it a question. What are you here for? What are you asking of me? What lie am I moving from that my mind has made up about this situation that I cannot discover with my personality? See, Ernest Holmes says the personality has nothing to do with your truth. You use your personality as it was cultivated to move through the world as an individual, but the truth is the oneness that we all are is always present. And it is that rock that Donald was talking about. Reverend Donald was talking about that rock. I call it the pebble in my shoe. Right? So something goes wrong, it kind of irks you, it's easy to go out, it's easy to blame, it's easy to shame yourself and others. Mostly we do it to ourselves, because however you're talking to others, or however you allow others to talk to you, is how you talk to yourself in the quietude of your mind. There's no guessing, right? When someone shows up and we don't have good self-boundaries, and I don't mean boundaries for other people, I mean boundaries for ourselves. If we don't have a good navigation of our mind, it's hard to do the inner work. So the pebble in my shoe is really interesting. When I was a little girl, I had gotten a thorn in my foot. And I was so afraid to tell my mom that I got a thorn in my foot that I kind of tried to get it out myself and, put my shoe on. And I would, kind of walk like I was 7, like nobody was going to see. And my mom's like, what's going on with your foot? And I'm like, nothing. I did not want anyone digging in my foot. I did not want anyone pushing it, irritating it. I did not want anybody doing anything with it. And this is what it's like for us when we have these deep-seated traumas or ideas or belief systems. We don't want anyone to push it, but guess what? The universe loves you so much, it will always bring you the person to push the thorn in your foot. And it will, depending on the level of the belief, irritate you, frustrate you, make you cry, make you react, make you blame. And that is the gift of the universe. That's how much the universe loves you, is it sends someone to irritate you. Thank you. Who's clapping? Yes, that's right. And so my mom proceeds to make a poultice. That age is my mom, right? She's like, I have a cure, and she makes a poultice and she wraps my foot in it, and she I was a little girl, and of course that didn't work, so we had to go to the hospital, and then they had to freeze it with the spray, and of course I'm 7, I'm sure I was like, what we do in our mind. It's a perfect story that supports the idea of what we do when we are frustrated and we're angry and we're moving from that belief system. And our goal here is to make you uncomfortable. We want you to have a good time. We want to have community. We want to laugh, play, sing, and have a good time. But we also want to be that agitant, that irritation in your deeper psyche that says, oh my gosh, there's something here for me. And when you pull it up, you look at it, it's freedom. It's the freedom of reality. And then you know, if you're like me, you go tell everybody, you know what belief I dug up today? Oh, I'm so excited. And I love to tell everybody about my roots that I pull up from. Because, you know, if I think if everyone knows that I can do it, then they can know that they can do it too, right? And that's just happens to be my gift, is to be able to speak about that. So as the doctor was freezing my foot and he cut the little thing out and pulled the thorn out and, you know, put the bandage on it, and he looked at me and he goes, now you're free to walk about. Right? Now you're free to walk about. But what we do is we get so used to that pebble that it becomes who we are, right? It becomes a part of us. It gets so deeply embedded that eventually maybe the skin will grow a callus, and, you know, it might agitate you every now and then if you step on it the wrong way. But, you know, after a while, if your body doesn't push it out, it brings it in. Right? And so that's what our mind, that's what the work does. It pushes it out. It gets you to notice it. It wants to be extracted, and a revealing of your higher truth. That water wearing through the rock opens you up to a new idea. You can't see the light through a blacked-out curtain. Right? You can't. You can't see. If you held the rock up and there's no, you know, holes worn away, there's nothing, you can't see anything, so you're always going to be in the same place that you started. That's why this work, it's hard. It can be painful. It can be really tricky, because in our philosophy, we can do a lot of self-blaming, like, why did I create that? So in the workshop, I was talking about, with Reverend Donald, I was talking about his personal circumstance, and afterwards I was like, man, I had so many insights that kept coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. And he said, and I said, I still don't know how I created this. And he goes, that's not the question. The question is, what's in it for you? I hate that. What's in it for me? So when I hear what's in it for me, I kind of go negative. I'm like, what's in it for me? Like, I don't know what's in it for me. Like, I don't like that. And he said, okay, what wants to be uncovered? What new reality wants to be birthed? And I realized that this circumstance, I was walking around saying, this person is doing this. And I didn't even recognize it until I started writing in his workshop. I was writing and I'm like, holy cow. Oh, they're not, no. So it's a court situation for the kids, and we had to show up, and I was like, she's taking us to court. And then I read it and I was like, nobody's taking me anywhere. I'm showing up. I'm showing up. And I'm standing in my authority and my power, but I was so concerned about why this was happening instead of, hey, maybe there's a good thing here for me. Hey, maybe it's not a bad thing to go to court when you really want to establish a truth about yourself or about others. It doesn't really matter how it ends up. And he goes, you want to know what I see, Tracey? I see a situation where you get to stand in your authority and in your power, and this situation is calling you to that. And I was like, yeah. And there's freedom in that. And then everything that I was holding on to, the resistance, the person, the place, the judge, everybody, it just all fell away. And none of that mattered because I had my purpose. I had my purpose for this particular situation, and I also let go of the blame of why I created it. We have to have circumstances to call us forward to live our authentic life, and in my world, those are supposed to always be positive. Right? Thank you, Miss Nitz. There, you know, like, why would I create something negative? Well, the truth is it's not negative. I was perceiving it as negative. The truth is, nothing really is negative. It is the perception from the life that you lived, that conscious bias that labels a situation. And if we stop and go, now, why am I labeling that negative. And how do you know it's negative? Because it doesn't feel good when you're talking about it. It doesn't lift you up. It doesn't make you lighter. It doesn't bring you a sense of peace. That's how you know. And sometimes it's very hard to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop. Sometimes you need a little help. Sometimes you have to trust and you have to ask Spirit. You have to go quiet. You have to sit in the stillness. You have to find a porch, a beach, a place. And if you have a busy life like mine, it's very hard to do that. And then it just ruminates right in here. And one of the things that I have heard, and Ernest Holmes says, is to get it out of here is to write it down here, because you are energetically releasing and can actually see what is happening when you write it down. I talk a lot about that, but I don't even know that I wholly bought into it until the workshop when I saw the truth, and I was just like, wow. So, I'm a minister that shares those things with you because I want you to know that we're all in this together. We're all taking this journey together, and none of us are different in the sense that we are not conditioned. Now, maybe you've dropped the personality self. Maybe you're an enlightened being, but you still got to chop wood and carry water. So your responsibility then is even bigger than the one for the person who's still seeking or searching. Your job then is to hold the truth for them and be that mirror. And that job is, one that deserves a lot of pay. It is not always easy to be the mirror of truth for somebody else. It's not. I apologize for moving this microphone around. I found this book, The Inner Work, because I am a process person, and sometimes it's just sitting quietly. But there are some really great questions in this book. There's some really great questions in this book when you identify that trigger. And what they talk about here is that if you want a new narrative, then you have, and you desire to be a person who is free, and that you have an intention and you have the realization that you are enough and that you want to accept yourself just as you are, then there are some questions you can ask. And you can, when the feeling comes, because most often you hear like I said, you hear the mind, and then depending on your sensory and your nervous system, you may feel the sensation, and the sensations, again, are what I'm always trying to run from. So the question one is, bringing your awareness, right? You're bringing your awareness, okay, it's a thought, it's rolling around, I'm gonna write it down. Why is this here? What's in it for me? But most importantly, what is it that you are trying to show me that I can release now, that I picked up along the way? Can you, Spirit, show me gently, easily, with grace, the truth of this? And then you let it go. You journal, you just let it go. And then the most amazing thing happens. You show up for a talk, you read a book, someone makes a recommendation of a podcast, and there's this little insight, this inspiration that pings you in the heart and opens you up in a whole new way, and that false narrative falls away, and the new narrative takes root. That's not who I am. That was not the truth. I no longer have to move and have my way, that I can be the stillness, right? And it's a process of unfolding. This morning when I was getting ready, I thought to myself, as I do, I ruminate, and I thought to myself, who's ruminating? Who is this that's spinning all these thoughts, and who is it that's giving attention to them? And it was a moment where I said, you know those moments where you go, and those are the true moments where you go, and I stopped and I thought, I don't know. I don't know who's ruminating and who's giving it attention to. So I ran to my book and I wrote it down, and I was getting dressed, so I had to leave it. But it inspired this conversation that I'm having with you today, that the universe does not play favorites. The law works. You are evidence of it. Your life is a life based on your beliefs. And it was said to me by a very good friend of mine, if you don't know what you believe, just take a look at your life. It's like a living manifestation of everything unconscious, because it's who you are. It's really hard to look at yourself, and you have to learn to look at yourself in a very loving way. And that is what the thing itself in the first book talks about, is that we have to start living a bold life. Ernest Holmes says, committing to the inner work and expanding our conscious mind makes the law work. It's always working in your favor, by the way. You're directing it based on your mental attitude. So where's the work? The inner work is to evaluate our mental attitude. What is our orientation? How we were taught to meet things in a negative or positive way? What is the orientation that we bring to circumstances? Am I a victim in this, or am I free in this to find out what's going on? And then we just start to dig a little deeper. And every time we have that clash of the titans, that gift that shows up for us, we can go stomp. You get to tell your story once, you throw some pillows around the room, scream and shout, and then call a friend, a practitioner, a loved one, or go into your mantra, because a mantra is there's no superpower in it. What it's doing is stopping your mind and reprogramming your subconscious. So my mantra is always, I am who I am, and that is enough. And so I'm going to end with this story, because I really want you to know this. My grandson's visiting, and he's having a hard time adjusting at our house with a 2-year-old. He's 7. And so I'm like, let's try this. I am who I am, and that is enough. And so every morning he comes running in the bedroom, Grandma, I am who I am, and that is enough. And I'm like, you sure are. No, we got to say it 5 times. And so I was like, you are. And you can see this beaming truth come out of him. And you can also see when the story takes hold, because he's 7. So the conditioning's already begun, right? And so I'm like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go Goodwilling. And he's like, what? And I'm like, Grandma loves a Goodwill. So what do you want to find at the Goodwill? And he goes, Paw Patrols. I'm like, all right, what else? These particular type of cars that Luke likes. So I drop the kids at daycare. We go to the Goodwill. And that kid was a magnet for every single thing he was looking for. He found the motherlode of Paw Patrols, the cars that go to the car movie, like just bags of stuff. And I was like, he's like, Grandma, he's in the back of the Goodwill. And he's like, look what I found. I am who I am, and that is enough. And I'm like, you sure are. And we went to 3 Goodwills, and I'm telling you, at every Goodwill, that kid found what he was looking for. So much so that he believed that to be true about himself without question. And last night I decided I'm going to go to the Goodwill by myself to get away from the kids. I'm in the Goodwill going, I am who I am, and that is enough. I'd like to find. Didn't work for me. I came home with a Paw Patrol car. But my point is, stick to it. It's true. If a child can believe them about himself, lay your conditioning down for a little while. Get a practitioner, call a friend, talk to your minister. Just let go and know that the more work you do and the consistency that you stay with it is equal to the results that you will receive. And so it is. And we will anchor that in prayer. We're going to anchor that in prayer. Okay? All right, here we go. I'm waiting for you. I like when Jackson plays music for my prayers, because I am who I am, and that is enough. All right, just knowing right here, right now, that life is good, that we are good, that there is an inherent nature, a beauty, a truth, a reality beyond our little minds. And that we fall in love with ourselves just as we are, just who we are, knowing that innocence, that yearning to know the world, that curiosity of life, that thing that blossomed in us when we were little to become older and wiser, and we looked to people outside of ourselves to garner our story. Well, now the season has come. The truth is calling you home to lay down the story. You don't need it anymore. that a new truth arises within you. It brightens your mind, it lifts your heart, it enlightens your beingness with everybody that you meet. And when life happens as it does and the adjutant comes, we know that there is a truth greater than that within us. And we take the time to stop, take a breath, breathe, and see what Spirit has for us. How are we looking at it? What does it want us to know? How is it here for my path to freedom? The reality of life is yours and it is mine, and there is only one mind, and that mind is our mind right now. It reveals to you the very depths of your being, the seed that was planted in each and every one of us for multitudes of lives. And because you are here in this center, you are willing to look, you shall know your truth, because you are here to discover it for yourself. It is most certainly each of our responsibilities. It is love calling us forth to be the best and highest version of ourselves, one step at a time. And anything unlike that is just obliterated and gone. And we are here, we are now, we are present. And love always is. And I recognize this truth and I set it into the ethers, knowing it cannot be returned void, because what is set here in consciousness by more than one is the truth of the divine nature. And I call it so, and I call it now, and so it is.